shocks can be shocking, unpleasant, and shocks can be pleasant. And I'm going to mention 3 shocks delivered to me by Oliver Tambo, which I think have relevance for South Africa today. The first is 1967. A few hundred of us in Peace House in London. Oliver Tambo is going to make an important announcement. And he announces that the Albert Lutuli Brigade of Mkhonto Wesizwe has crossed the Zambezi River on its way back to fight for liberation in South Africa. They were intercepted by Rhodesian troops. There was a firefight, and a number of the Rhodesian troops, under Ian Smith, then white supremacist, lay dead, and there were no injuries to our people. We stood up and we cheered. And behind me a voice cries out, "That's murder." We're expecting OR now to say, "How dare you call our fighters murderers and killers? We've tried everything, peacefully, non-violence." And instead he says, maybe the worst thing that apartheid has done has to turn our young people, instead of becoming farmers and engineers and nurses and teachers, to become killers. I was stunned. I was stunned. Some years later, I'm working in Mozambique. I get a phone call to go, can I go to Lusaka to meet Oliver Tambo? I fly there. He tells me that we've captured a number of enemy agents. They're locked up, and we have nothing in the ANC constitution that deals with what do you do with captured enemy agents. And I said, well, the international instruments that say no inhuman degrading punishment, no torture. He says, we use torture. I can't believe it. We're fighting for freedom, we use torture. He says with a bleak face. But his response was not simply to issue a command as president of the ANC, we don't use torture, but to ask me to help write a code of conduct so that these things won't happen, and the code of conduct being put to the Congress, the consultative conference of the ANC at Kabwe, so that the whole membership accept we don't use torture. We don't use torture. The third is we now developing in the Constitutional Committee of the ANC a vision for a new South Africa. And he comes up with the notion of a Bill of Rights. Now, I've sometimes been honored or spoken of as the person who introduced the Bill of Rights to the ANC. The other way around. I was skeptical of a Bill of Rights. I belonged to the critical legal people who felt Bill of Rights gives too much power to the judges. You should fight out political issues in the streets in Parliament. And Oliver Tambo, based on research by Paulo Jordan, said, we need a Bill of Rights in South Africa. It's the answer to group rights. We would have had a constitution that would have ended up with Mandela president on Monday, Buthelezi on Wednesday, and de Klerk on Tuesday. Power sharing, they were talking.
Yeah.
And the Bill of Rights, coupled with majority rule, became the foundation of our constitution. So I ask the question often, if we did a paternity test on our constitution, whose DNA would come up? And it was Oliver Tambo in Lusaka. The foundations of what we've got were laid there. It could have been people's power, one-party rule. It could have been a classical constitution that didn't empower the people through a Bill of Rights, through transformation. The relevance for today is a huge battle. It's not just for power in the country. It's for the soul of the nation. It's for the spirit of the nation, the values of the nation. And if Oliver Tambo stood for anything, it was for absolute integrity. And he taught us, through example, through his manner of dealing with issues, our struggle was not a struggle for power. It was a struggle for humanity. Humanity. Humanity meant destroying the racist power and creating a power that expressed the humanity of everybody. And the way I see things in South Africa today is there's an enormous battle on the issue of power, advancement, riches, ambition on the one side, and humanity, concern, respect, collegiality, Ubuntu on the other. I think the goodies, if you like, are winning slowly. They're winning because they have the constitution to back them. They're winning because they have the great majority of South Africans to back them. So I am, in that sense, optimistic, but I'm optimistic by nature. When I was blown up, I said I only lost an arm. But it turned out that my optimism was true. We got South Africa, we got a country, we got a constitution, and I believe we're going to get through slowly, cautiously, using constitution, using the rule of law, using the determination of ordinary people to get beyond the difficulties that we have today.